You know that feeling when you are in the middle of a crucial conversation, or maybe you're staring down a really high-stakes email, and your brain just reaches for that perfect, sophisticated word?
Oh yeah, the one you practiced for like an hour just yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And suddenly, the mental filing cabinet is completely empty. You are just grasping at air, wondering why staring at a list of words and flipping through flashcards until your eyes glaze over just isn't working.
Right, because it's the ultimate illusion of productivity, really. We assume brute force is the only answer to vocabulary acquisition, but human memory just does not operate on brute force.
Which is exactly why we are completely dismantling that approach today. Welcome, everyone. You are tuning in to Speak Up English Hub, and specifically our Advanced English Listening for Native Fluency program.
And we are super excited to get into this.
We really are. Our mission for today's exploration is to completely transform how you learn, retain, and actively use new vocabulary. We've got a fascinating stack of sources today, including some great articles on vocabulary acquisition and literacy, plus a detailed video transcript from an expert English instructor.
Yeah, and the premise here is that we are moving way past rote memorization. Those old flashcards just don't work. We are going to explore the psychological and neurological reasons why some words stick in your brain forever, while others just kind of, vanish the moment you close a book.
Well, before we get into exactly how to memorize words, we need to understand why vocabulary is actually more crucial than perfect grammar.
Which is, that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of language learners out there.
Oh, totally. A lot of people listening right now probably spend a massive amount of energy trying to get their grammar flawless. But there's this striking quote from one of our linguistic sources that really puts it in perspective.
Oh, the one about conveying meaning.
Yeah. It says, without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. And they illustrate this with this really funny concept. Like if you walk into a busy cafe and say, "Me wants coffees."
Right. The grammar is an absolute disaster.
It's terrible. But your desire is perfectly understood. You're still walking out with a cup of coffee because you had the right vocabulary words.
Exactly. The vocabulary is the raw material. So to get those words to actually stick in your brain, the experts outline 5 core conditions. You need repetition, noticing, retrieval, use, and effective depth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because repetition makes sense on the surface, but I have a very practical question. How many times do I actually need to repeat a word? Like, is it 5 times? 20 times?
Well, you would think science has a magic number for us by now, but there really isn't one. The research shows that sometimes even 20 encounters with a word simply isn't enough.
Wait, really? 20 times and it still doesn't stick?
Yeah. In fact, there's an anecdote in the sources about a non-native English teacher, a literal professional, who admits they still have to look up the word yield every single time they see it.
A professional teacher who still can't remember yield. That is wild.
Right. But it happens because that word just isn't learnable or resonant to them. Repetition matters, sure, but it is totally blind without those other 4 conditions.
So if pure repetition doesn't work, how do we fulfill those conditions of noticing and retrieval?
We have to change how we define words in the first place. The literacy source talks about escaping the dictionary trap.
Meaning we have to stop just copying definitions from a dictionary into a notebook?
Exactly. Copying dictionary definitions is basically ineffective. What you really need are what they call rich meanings.
Okay, rich meanings. What does that actually look like?
To truly learn a word, the source says you should try to define it in up to 9 different ways.
9 ways? That sounds intense.
It is, but it works. You start with the dictionary definition, but then you add synonyms, antonyms, parts of speech, classification, comparison, real-life examples, graphic representations, and even physically acting it out.
Oh, wow. I like that. Kind of makes standard memorization seem like throwing uncooked spaghetti at a wall, right? Like you're just hoping something sticks.
That is a perfect analogy. The spaghetti just bounces off.
But this 9-step method is more like building a house. You're giving the word an actual physical structure and a foundation in your mind.
Exactly. You are building networks. Your brain organizes words in these interconnected webs. Like if I say diesel truck, your brain instantly brings up related words like wheels and highway.
So if my brain naturally links related words, does that mean I should learn every related word at once? Like, should I just memorize a whole list of synonyms together?
Well, what's fascinating here is that doing exactly that is actually terrible for your memory.
Wait, really? I would think batching them would be super efficient.
You would think so, but our sources explicitly warn against the danger of synonym overload.
Synonym overload, how does that happen?
If you try to learn closely related synonyms all at once, words like plethora, dearth, scarcity, and abundant, you actually just cause massive confusion in your brain.
Oh, because they all kind of blur together into one big concept.
Exactly. The neural pathways get crossed. Words have to be collected over time and linked to concepts you already know, not crammed in all at once.
That makes a lot of sense. So we know we need rich meanings and networks, but how do we practice this daily? Our instructor source offers a really specific 5-step method for this.
And step 1 is arguably the most important. It's all about matching pictures.
Right, because the source points out that visual memory is processed something like 60,000 times faster than text.
Which is just a staggering number.
It really is. So you absolutely have to tie abstract words to concrete images. Like, let's take the word jubilant.
Right, so instead of just reading happy, you need a visual.
Exactly. You picture a woman celebrating, fists clenched with pure joy.
Or take the word serene. You don't just memorize calm. You visualize a perfectly calm mountain lake reflecting the trees like a mirror.
Yes, or dilapidated. You don't write down ruined. You find an image of an old, crumbling building with broken shutters.
The visual does the heavy lifting. And then for steps 2 and 3, you write a personal sentence and you find synonyms.
So tying it to your actual life, like, I felt jubilant about my recent work promotion.
Yes. That personal context matters. And adding those 3 synonyms creates multiple retrieval pathways in your brain.
And then step 4 is finding the opposite, right? The antonyms.
Yes, and this is crucial. Finding antonyms provides clear boundaries for the word's meaning.
So pairing jubilant with dejected, or dilapidated with pristine.
Exactly. The human brain just naturally remembers contrasts and extremes way better than isolated concepts.
Okay, so we have the visual and we have the boundaries.
Yeah.
But the final, most powerful glue for memory is effective depth.
Right. Effective depth basically means tying a word to a really strong emotion.
There is this amazing story from the sources that illustrates this perfectly. It's about a student in a Spanish class.
Oh, the papal story. I love this one.
Yeah. So the teacher was handing out paper to everyone for an assignment, but completely forgot this one student.
They just walked right past them.
Exactly. So the student is sitting there feeling a bit ignored, and they had to raise their hand and ask, how do I say paper in Spanish? And the teacher just said, papal.
And because that moment was tied to that mild emotion of being left out, they remembered it effortlessly after just one encounter.
It just locked right in. It wasn't about flashcards. It was about a genuine need to communicate.
Because emotional and intellectual information are stored together in the brain. You can't just let words die in a notebook.
Right. You have to use them intentionally. Which brings us to the graduation game. This is a hilarious real-world example from an English language school in Auckland, New Zealand.
It is so brilliant. Tell them how it works.
So the teachers at this school had to give weekly graduation speeches. And to make it fun, they would secretly pick a random word from the top left corner of a dictionary page.
Literally just a totally random, obscure word.
Yep. And they would force themselves to slip it naturally into their speech in front of everyone.
Imagine the adrenaline of trying to fit a bizarre word into a formal speech without your boss noticing.
I know. But it turned a boring meeting into this high-stakes emotional game of usage. And it works perfectly for retention.
It really does. And to bring all these concepts together, especially effective depth and step 5 of our technique, which is telling a personal story, we have to look at the video source.
Oh, the Snake Canoe Story. This is an epic, high-emotion story centered entirely around the word serene.
It's the ultimate demonstration of these memory techniques.
The details are just amazing. So the instructor had their hair perfectly done. They said it was fried, dyed, and laid to the side.
Which, takes a lot of time and effort. The stakes for keeping that hair dry are very high.
Ooh, incredibly high. Yeah. And they go canoeing on this supposedly serene mountain lake, even though they have a major fear of snakes.
But the guide assured them there were no snakes, right?
Right, so they set off. But it quickly becomes apparent that the friends in the canoe didn't actually know how to paddle.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they completely panic, wobble the boat, and they flip the canoe entirely.
Ruining the hair.
Ruining the hair. The instructor hits the water and is frantically doggy paddling away, just desperately trying to save the hairstyle.
While their big, muscular friend is just flailing around because he can't swim at all.
It is pure chaos on this supposedly serene lake.
Mm-hmm.
And the kicker. After surviving all that panic, they find out later that the lake actually did have snakes in it.
Oh, that is horrifying. But, well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains exactly why this story is the perfect learning tool.
Because of that massive contrast, right?
Precisely. By associating the calm, peaceful textbook definition of serene with this highly contrasting, chaotic, and emotional memory of a snake-filled lake. That vocabulary word is permanently wired into their brain.
It is locked in forever. So let's summarize the core lessons we've covered today. Mindless repetition is a trap.
A total trap.
What creates true native fluency is consistency. Like just showing up for 15 minutes a day and letting that compound over a year, combined with building those rich, emotional, visual connections.
You have to step out of the dictionary. Tie abstract words to vivid visuals, use antonyms for boundaries, and attach vocabulary to your own chaotic stories.
Spot on. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this exploration. Remember, you've been tuning into the Advanced English Listening for Native Fluency program on Speak Up English Hub.
We love exploring this stuff with you.
We really do. And as we wrap up, our expert has a final provocative challenge for you to try at home.
Yes, I want you to think of one vocabulary word you've been struggling to remember for weeks. We all have that one word.
Oh, easily.
Ask yourself, what is the most chaotic, emotional, or vivid personal memory you can attach to it right now to make sure you never forget it again?
That is a fantastic challenge to leave off on. Start building those networks, attach those memories, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for being with us. See you on our next video. Let's speak up.